Greetings. Let's talk about The Sims. Wow, LGR, what a surprising thing. I know. But no, seriously, I want to talk about a specific question that comes up rather often in my Sims videos, comment section, tweets, emails, all sorts of places, and that is, why do you hate The Sims? You cover it so much, why do you constantly bash it? And, well, the simple answer is that I don't at all, actually. In fact, I have a very huge amount of admiration for the series. I own all the games. I've played them ever since they started coming out in 2000, and I continue to talk about them because I find it to be a very unique series in all of gaming. It's different than just about anything else out there, so I find it to be really special for just uniqueness alone, and also special because it was something that I grew up with. There's a lot of nostalgia for it. I've played all the Maxis games, starting with SimCity on forward throughout the 90s, and was a crazy fanboy and stuff for anything Will Wright had his hands on. So The Sims was naturally something that I was highly interested in. And when it came out, I was just as crazy about it as anyone else. It was fascinating on a deep level, and all the way through the years I've stuck with it, and it's now become something that is basically giving me my day job, which is making these videos. The Sims by far is what gives me most of my views and therefore most of my income. So obviously I have a pretty good incentive to keep talking about it. That's why you're going to see so many videos about it on my channel. But it's in a way also why I'm going to be a little critical of it too. And let me just sort of define something here for a moment, at least the way that I see it. I know that I can come across as highly snarky in my reviews, but snarkiness or, sarcastic remarks and stuff like that, critique especially, do not necessarily equate to negativity, at least in the way that I try to use these ideas in my videos. It's kind of like, for me, having a best friend that you've had for 15 years. You goad him on every so often and be like, haha, you screwed up, you loser. You suck, what's wrong with you? And whatever, and you laugh it off and it's fine. And it keeps happening every so often, whatever. But at some point it becomes really constant and the mistakes get bigger and bigger, and you're like, okay, let's seriously have a sit down talk here and really sort out your issues because I'm worried about you, dude. And that's kind of how it is for The Sims for me. I don't critique things that I don't care about to some degree. When I talk about other games that they're just sort of one-off things, let's see, I talked about recently, well, I can't talk about that one since I haven't actually put the... Okay, Crime Wave. There's an example that is a video. It's coming out soon. And I talk about it. I don't care about it too much. I still critique it, but that's just because I care about video games as a medium, and I want them to be better in a way, and I want people to make sure that they know what they're getting. See, that's an old game, and it's not even sold anywhere, so who cares? But The Sims, that's something that I have a huge attachment to, for one thing. And the other thing is it's still an ongoing series. It's new, it's relevant, and it's got a bigger fan base than ever, as far as I can tell. People are spending their hard-earned cash on this, and I feel some sort of personal responsibility, at least a little bit, to let people know what I think as far as what is a good purchase or not. And with The Sims recently, it has not been the best purchases. And when I mean recently, I mean in the past 5 years or so. Okay, let's just go through the timeline, right? With The Sims 1... it was new and it was fresh. It was a big deal. Nothing like this had ever come out. The Sims Deluxe, right? You had all these awesome editions of the game coming out, and they were all different. There was nothing else like it on the market. And then the expansion started coming, and that was fine. There had been expansion packs and games for ages. But then all of a sudden there were like 3, 4, 5, 6. The expansions just kept coming. And we accepted it, we lapped it up because this was something new and it was exciting and it was amazing. It was seriously like nothing else on the planet. And I know I personally had never seen anything like the community that sprang up around it. I loved it. And to this day, I still am highly involved in it, not just on a video standpoint and because of my job effectively, but I just like looking at the forums and following all the tweets and staying up to date on the fan sites up to the minute. I watch all the live streams, everything. I want every morsel of this series in my brain. I like it that much. And I did that back then too. And that was fine. But then The Sims 2 came along, and it was even better in many, many ways. And they kept doing the expansions, but then they added a little bit more in the form of stuff packs. Again, not bad at all. These were smaller, and they mostly just added stuff, right? Just objects and whatnot, and they cost less, and there weren't a whole lot of them, all things considered. And towards the end, though, they started adding some different things that I just didn't care about, but whatever. There weren't enough of them to really make much of a difference. Honestly, most of the stuff that I got for The Sims 2, other than expansions, was in the form of custom content. That kept me satiated. Sims 3 came along, and it was the same thing for a while, but about halfway through the Sims 3 lifecycle, I noticed something changing. And I don't know if it was just my personal tastes or getting older, maybe it has something to do with it, or maybe covering them in video form made me see this a little bit more. But about halfway through, I started seeing it get really different than the Sims series that I knew before. Katy Perry stuff pack, for example. The denim jeans, whatever, diesel pack. Yes, there was H&M fashion stuff in The Sims 2, but this one seemed lazier for some reason. And at that point, too, about halfway through it, all of these online packs kept coming out. And that was totally new. You had online content in the previous 2 games, but nothing to the degree that The Sims 3 had. And again, that was fine, because these were just packs, whatever. They were just online things. They weren't sold in stores. And then they started doing the towns. And these were $30 to $40, $45 to get a complete pack of the town and all the content. That was unheard of, and it really made me angry. And you might think, well, that's stupid. Who cares? If you don't want it, don't buy it. Blah, blah. I understand that. I really do. But my problem with it is when you oversaturate a market with a very specific type of content, especially high-priced content. I mean, there were a lot of these towns and a lot of this extra online stuff. When you saturate it like that, it tends to lower the overall value of something, at least in my mind and a lot of people that I've talked to. It's a similar thing to what happened with, say, Call of Duty, for instance. You see huge amounts of DLC coming out for it, and not all of it is very cheap. Some of it is, some of it's very piecemeal, whatever, guns, skins, and stuff, and a lot of the Sim stuff was too, but then you have so much of it. It becomes a joke. And if there's one thing that I don't want for a series that I personally really love, and that is, I just don't want it to become a joke. I don't want it to be cheapened by having so much stuff that is of lower quality than what we had before and what we got for free. And I know you can't always expect the same stuff to be constant throughout a life cycle, especially when it's a growing, unique experience like The Sims, but I think it got a little out of hand towards the end of The Sims 3, and then when The Sims 4 came out, you had less in the overall base game. From the very beginning, there was less to work with. And the cynical side of me just saw that as saying, wow, they are going to milk this to death, just adding more stuff later on. And then the other side of me was like, okay, maybe this is just different. This is a different thing. I can get used to it. I can really enjoy this just like I've enjoyed the other ones, even though there's no open world, even though there's no this life state or no pools or all these different things that, the lack of color wheels and customization and stuff. I could get used to that because I like the other changes. But now, and the pack that I'm going to be reviewing tomorrow, Cool Kitchen, this is the 3rd stuff pack in as many months. There have been games packs in between, expansion packs, and another expansion pack announced. At this rate, there's going to be 12 stuff packs per year, potentially. It is absurd and silly. It's just absolutely silly to me, because at this point, it just seems like it is devaluing something that I would much rather see stay something that is a quality product. I've always associated the Sims games in the past with something of very high quality, and a lot of that has to do with its uniqueness. The uniqueness is what makes the Sims. It is something like nothing else out there. That's great, but there's something to be said about quality over quantity, and at this point it seems to be quantity over quality. And again, I can understand the argument for having more experiences for more people, but for me personally, wanting to have everything and also just having to cover it for these videos, or choosing to cover it for them, it just gets burdensome, and when you look at it, it becomes completely overwhelming as a consumer. When you, let's say a year down the line, and you go to Origin or wherever and look at the Sims 4 store, you're going to see this massive thing. It's going to be like a train simulator sort of thing. When people got into Train Simulator, they're like, all right, this is kind of interesting, this is unique, right? And then they saw the DLC. There's like thousands of pieces of DLC for it, and it's overwhelming to the point that it turns a lot of people off. And it's in a similar situation because that is a very hobbyist, enthusiast-oriented type of game, much like The Sims. But with that, it's never really reached the type of mainstream appeal that The Sims has. And I think there is a huge risk in cheapening that appeal when you put out so much stuff. And you might say, okay, well, it's just online. You don't have to go to Origin. No, man, it's pushed through the menus now. There's a button for DLC right there in the game, right up at the top. And it's right there in your face whenever you start it up. There's a news feed, there's whatever, and people become more and more connected online nowadays too, so you start following a Twitter or a Facebook, and then you see it. Every other tweet is some sort of promotional thing, and that's fine. They're allowed to do that. I understand it, but that doesn't mean that I disagree, or that I agree, because I disagree. I think that you can go too far with this, and I think that they are on this path now where it is going too far. And that's fine. They're totally free to do that. Electronic Arts is not a stupid bunch of people. In fact, they're very smart. They've been around for ages, and they have done a lot of really good games. And they've done some very smart moves as far as marketing, but my God, they have made some terrible ones too. And completely run things into the ground that have been beloved for a long time. And I think that the only reason The Sims is sticking around so long now is because it is still unique. There are no competitors for it, and the fan base is still completely rabid for it, and I am one of them. I want so many things from this series. I want to see it become better. I want it to be that friend that I can come back to, still enjoy, even though maybe it's aged and changed a little bit, but I want to see it gradually improving in the spots where maybe it's faltering. And at this point, I see it thriving in the terms of marketing and in the terms of just the mass appeal amongst its fan base, but I don't necessarily see it bringing in new people, and at least in the same way as the old ones did. And maybe that's just me, but it is something that I'm going to continually call out in my videos, and it's not out of a place of hatred. It's not out of a place of disdain or wanting to ruin the brand or make people, turned off to the whole idea, even though sometimes it may come across that way. I know snarkiness and the way that I talk can come across as a bit negative or dry or derogatory even when I'm talking about something like this, because I do it infused with a type of humor. And that type of humor can be perceived as like, oh man, he really doesn't like this. No, it's really not. I assure you that when I'm saying this particular thing is overpriced and I don't think it's worth it, or this particular thing is lackluster and they could have done a much better job, that's not because I hate it. And if I say something, like I hope that Katy Perry House of Pain burns down or whatever, it's just to be funny, because I like to entertain and educate in my games. And the educational part of me wants to continually push what's going good and what's going bad in these packs. The other part of me just wants to make people laugh. So I try to balance that out. It doesn't always work. My apologies for that. But yeah, that's sort of where I am in the state of The Sims at the moment. And this has definitely become a bit of a ramble here. I've been going on almost 15 minutes. Well, I don't really know what else to say except that there are still going to be Sims videos on my channel, of course, but I'm really considering not covering them all now because there's just too many. And I don't want to completely saturate my channel with all of that, even though there is just, you know, this is the series that has become the prime destination on LGR, at least in terms of views, and that's fine. I want to keep that going as much as I can, but I don't know if I can cover everything that keeps coming out for this series and do it in a sane way and just not go crazy and become like this curmudgeon-y old guy that just wants things to go how they used to be. I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to remain rational and also honest about what I think and what I recommend as far as these games and these packs and what is going on with it, because the state of things now, it genuinely concerns me, and I really hope that I'm wrong, but I just see this becoming a joke of a franchise, even more so than it already has been. You know, there's a lot of derogatory things said about this, and that hurts, man, because it, you know, whatever, I'm taking it personally, but that's what happens when you're a fanatic about something. You do take things a little bit personally, even if you didn't make it. You want it to be the best, and I genuinely just want this to be the best series, because it's like the only thing out there like it, and I don't want that to just turn to crap like SimCity or any number of other things that have been touched by EA and other large corporations that have run something into the ground. Assassin's Creed is another one of those. I loved it at the beginning, and I just can't care about it anymore, and I'm finding myself genuinely having difficulty giving a crap about The Sims 4 now, because they're not addressing so many things that should have been addressed from the beginning, or should have never been taken out of the game from the beginning. And then they're adding more and more and more stuff that I don't care about. And I know that that's selfish, but whatever. That's how my videos are going to be, because it is me. And these are my opinions, and you're very well free to disagree, but know where I'm coming from, and that when I critique something, I genuinely just want it to be the best. And it sucks when things falter and they're not what you hoped they were. And that's a bit of fanboyism. I'm very well aware, and I know that it's not unbiased at all. My videos are biased, highly, especially when it comes to The Sims, because this is something that, like I said, just means a lot. And I want it to come across, but also in a way that is neutral-ish, in the sense that it's just like, okay, maybe some people like this, maybe some people don't. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this anymore. But thanks for listening, at least, if you've gotten to this point. And I hope you enjoy the further videos that I choose to do on The Sims 4 and other Sims games. Maybe I'll just start talking about some of the previous ones again. I don't know. Some of the spin-offs, I haven't covered those. Those are kind of interesting. I would like to see more spin-offs at this point, because the core series just isn't doing it for me anymore, at least not to the same degree, and I'm genuinely having a hard time giving a crap about it, because it doesn't seem like the publisher does, or at least in terms of quality. They got the quantity out there, and choice is great, but when there's so many little things that become, that they just start blending together, and the stuff that is genuinely interesting and important to me, and many others, like, say, seasons or pets or toddlers or whatever else, that probably should have been in there at the beginning, or at least been an earlier thing added to it, it becomes a bit of a concern. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments, because you always do, and it's always interesting. And yeah, thank you very much for watching me ramble. Farts.